Welcome, everyone. Today we're going into a topic that, whew, it's a big one. It's loaded with what can bring up a lot of feelings in the listeners. So if you find yourself in a place listening to this episode and it's bringing stuff up for you, I invite you to just put one hand on your heart, one hand on your solar plexus, the space right above your belly button. Take a few deep breaths and know that you are held, you are seen, and whatever you're going through, you are definitely not alone. This topic today is an important one. It's all about the concept of finding pleasure and pain, which I find really profound because it touches on the idea that emotional pain, when embraced fully, can be a real gateway to healing, to transformation, and to experiencing real joy and pleasure. So, this episode has the potential to empower you by reframing your relationship with difficult emotions, especially the emotions of anger and rage. So, let's jump in. Becoming a co-creator with the creator is your birthright. Together, we'll journey into your deepest authenticity. Because the more you align with who you truly are, the more effortlessly you call in the life that you desire and deserve. And most importantly, the more you step into your soul's highest purpose. Welcome to the Manifestation Method podcast, your number one source for Kabbalistic manifestation. Here we combine the ancient wisdom of Kabbalah, modern psychology, and quantum physics to help you achieve real, tangible manifestation results with my proven Abra method. I'm Ayelet Polonsky, and I'm here to guide you on your journey of manifesting a life that is aligned, expansive, and deeply connected to your highest self through the sacred energetic mechanics of Kabbalistic manifestation. To learn how to use Kabbalistic manifestation to transform your life from the inside out, go to ayeletpolonsky.com or download the Manifestation Method app. Let's open the gates of manifestation together.
So I guess the first question would really be, what is the importance of feeling our feelings, especially in a world where we're trying to constantly think ourselves out of feeling?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I'll start by saying, why does it matter? Why does it matter to feel our feelings? We hear a lot of, new psychology or new age talk or people in the healing world saying that, you've got to feel it to heal it. But what does that actually mean and why does it matter? And the answer is that many people are conditioned to suppress emotions like anger, sadness, frustration, in particular women, right? Women who are often socialized to prioritize harmony and compliance and do the right thing, whatever it means. We call it good girl syndrome, be a good girl or stop making a big deal out of things. And the thing is that suppressing emotions, it really leads to emotional stagnation. It can cause physical tension and it even causes long-term health issues, right? Because what ends up happening is it's not like these emotions go anywhere. By ignoring them, by pretending they're not there, or even trying to talk our way out of it from a mind position, right, just causes these emotions to kind of get swept under the rug, so to speak. And then they end up just living in our blind spots, but they start manifesting in really sneaky, subtle ways. And when we're suppressing these emotions, it becomes really hard to connect the dots and to link why I'm acting a certain way. Where is it stemming from? Why am I not happy? Why am I not fulfilled? Why am I stressed? Why do I have illness? But the reason for all of that is because I'm not letting myself feel the vibrancy of all the keys on the emotional piano. So what is this good girl syndrome? right? So if we think about it, like historically, women have been expected to embody certain character traits like gentleness, softness, grace, patience, compliance, and expressing big feelings such as rage or deep sorrow was often labeled as being like hysterical, or this woman would be seen as being unstable, maybe even psychotic, right? Or she's acting inappropriately.
Right.
And this cultural programming leaves or has left many women really disconnected from their full range of emotions, which really results in internalized shame or guilt for experiencing natural human emotions. Like, if God has gifted us with a whole keyboard of human emotion, then it must be for a reason. And it must be that we're meant to be doing something with this emotion, because all emotion is just energy in motion. And when we're able to really bring our attention to what it is we're feeling and not suppress it, then we allow for this energy in motion to do what it's meant to do, which is to be in motion, to move, to shift, to alchemize. And so as women, we really are genuinely these like alchemists. But when we start to shame or feel guilt over the like inborn emotions that we've been gifted with, right, then we can't do this beautiful alchemical process. So like let's use an example to kind of drive this point home. So if you like imagine a little girl who is angry because her boundaries were crossed. Let's say her big brother took her toy, and if her parents or her caretakers respond to her by saying, "Stop crying. It's not a big deal. Stop being so sensitive." Right? This little girl, what she's taking in, the information she then processes is in the message of, uh-oh, I need to ignore my anger because anger is bad. Feeling big feelings is bad. And as
And
an
also too, like I can't stand up for myself, or if I express my anger, I'm just gonna get shut down. So it like naturally makes you like want to internalize these feelings.
Totally. And when we internalize these feelings and we're taught to not stand up for ourselves, what ends up happening is we grow up to become adults and it might manifest as people-pleasing behaviors. It might manifest as having a difficulty asserting oneself, or it might manifest as like bottling up emotions, but then they end up exploding in unhealthy ways, right? So there's a real superpower to finding the pleasure in pain. And I call it like reclaiming emotional sovereignty, right? Reclaiming emotional sovereignty, which means that by feeling your emotions deeply, by not suppressing them, by not shaming them, by not pretending that they're too much of a big deal or they're not important, like what you do by feeling your emotions deeply is you reclaim the parts of yourself that have been silenced for so many years. And if we look at anger, for example, anger is not inherently bad, right? Sadness is not inherently bad. Frustration is not inherently bad. All these feelings are simply messengers that signal to us that a boundary has been crossed or that something needs to change. So if we can start to see our emotions less in the framework of they're bad or there's something wrong with me, and we start to see these emotions as our like friends, our messengers, our guardian angels that are here to help us like pivot in the direction that is more aligned with our authentic needs and wants, then we start to work together with these emotions to start creating a life for ourselves that actually serves us and starts to feel joyful.
So, what are some tools of just being able to kind of open up the Pandora's box of feeling our feelings? Or even like feeling specifically uncomfortable feelings like anger or rage or grief?
Yeah. Yeah, so there's a few different techniques that I find to be really potent and powerful. One of them I actually did this morning, and within literally, I kid you not, within maybe 30 seconds, it felt like all of this energy that was pent up in my heart and in my throat chakra, like in that energy center of my body. At first, it felt like it was like muddied, like I was walking through thick molasses in my chest. right? But then the moment I did this, I screamed into a pillow. Right. And it didn't even need to be like the loudest scream on planet Earth. It was just like, it's just it can be super loud. There's no problem with that. But sometimes people feel a lot of shame even with the act of just screaming into a pillow. So I'll have people do like a silent scream into a pillow, but I really, really invite you to like really let loose. And by screaming into this pillow, what ended up happening was it almost felt like the energy, which remember, emotion is energy in motion, emotion, energy in motion. It started to get lighter. It started to almost like dissolve. It started to become a little more expansive. So what ended up happening was I created space in my chest because the energy of anger that was inside of me, by letting it out, it no longer lives inside of me. And so that is real alchemy. And suppressed anger can feel really explosive when it's released. So screaming into a pillow provides a physical outlet without necessarily disturbing those around you. And it's really like the primal act of screaming that allows the energy of rage to move through the body. So if you can imagine someone like yelling into a pillow after a really frustrating day at work, right? As they're screaming, their entire nervous system gets a signal to relax. And what you might find is afterwards, they might start to laugh or even cry or even just feel like a release of pent up tension. So I find screaming into a pillow to be really, really valuable. Another thing that I really recommend, and I a couple years ago was in a situation with a friend where so many of my boundaries were crossed with her, and she was like a real soul sister. Like I thought she was a forever friend, and the whole situation was a real blessing in disguise. But while I was in it, right, that like separation, that rupture in our relationship brought up a lot of feelings in me, brought up a lot of judgment towards her, judgment towards myself, shame, all of it. And so I had another soul sister of mine. She recommended that I journal unfiltered thoughts. I journal my thoughts unfiltered. So what this looked like was I literally opened up my journal and I wrote without censoring myself at all. Now, I'm not someone who really like uses curse words in everyday conversation. But when I was journaling, and I'm only sharing this so that you feel like if you need the permission to really let loose, right? Let the anger flow through your words. If you feel like you need to curse, if you feel like you need to really let loose, right? This creates a safe space to express and process raw emotions without judgment. And that is also a very powerful energy release because what you're doing is you're essentially taking all of this anger you feel towards someone, towards a situation, and you're putting it down onto the paper. So it's no longer sitting as heavy within you. There is a beautiful alchemy that happens when you do this as well. Another process to help one really work through big feelings is just physical movement, right? Like one thing I do with my kids when they're feeling big feelings, I invite them to punch a pillow, right? Or to like jump up and down or stomp their feet. And I can see instantly when they like take that anger, because with little kids, they often don't know what to do with these big feelings. And it really feels like it's taking over. Same with adults, right? We haven't gone that far, right? When we're feeling big feelings, it can feel like we're under the wave and we don't know what to do with it. And so just by punching a pillow, by moving your body or even hitting a mattress, can really channel anger out of the body. So movement is key to releasing emotions that are stored in the muscles. So that's another thing. And then the last thing that I really recommend, and this is usually like one of my big go-tos because I love using my voice and I love using vibration as a form of alchemy, is singing or chanting, right? Like, when you're over my house, I'm like always singing.
Even when I'm not over the phone, random
Even when we're on the phone, right? I'll just
outbursts.
start like bursting out in song, or I'll go in my backyard with my like
Yeah, with your
elk
drum.
drum and disturb the neighbors. But just letting like, and for me, it's a lot about the vibration. So using your voice is a powerful way to release emotions. Sing loudly, chant primal sounds like ah, right? That can really help move stagnant energy. Oh, another thing actually that has to do with like singing or chanting, or at least like using sound to move energy, is when I was in India at the ashram, one of the things they'd have us do is yell out loud in gibberish. So it sounds really weird. It feels really awkward because most of you have probably never done this, but I'll demonstrate so that you don't feel like you're the only one that's a weirdo. But go somewhere where you have privacy so you can really let loose and just literally start right? Just literally whatever wants to come out. This kind of like disturbs the anger in its tracks, right? And so it starts to then again dissolve a lot of that pent up energy and trip out the brain so that you're not so focused on the how to come out of the anger. Because oftentimes what we'll do is we'll get fixated on how to fix the problem, and we'll get into like a fixing friendly frenzy, right? And so by chanting in gibberish, you disrupt the mind from getting involved and interfering and trying to figure out how to fix it. Because feeling your feelings is not about fixing your feelings, right? It's simply about being present with all the keys on the keyboard. And that in and of itself is the way to release these emotions.
One thing also too I want to kind of backtrack into is the whole concept of pleasure and pain, and then also not getting stuck in the anger. Like I think sometimes too there's people talk a lot about feeling your feelings and giving attention to your feelings, and sometimes we can get a little bit stunted in feeling the feeling, and it can turn into bitterness and resentment. Like sometimes it can even like perpetuate these feelings a little bit. But I think that's because people don't have maybe, or haven't been able to embody the concept of how pleasure and pain are two sides of the same coin.
Yeah, and pleasure and pain are definitely two sides of the same coin, right? Because the extent that we can experience pain is the like equivalent on the spectrum of how much pleasure we can feel. And this is something that was really brought to life for me when I became a mom, right? It's like, oh my gosh, like how can I love this human so much that it causes me so much pain, right? It's like the act of loving this child is the same mechanism that causes me like deep pain, maybe sometimes even fear, maybe sometimes anger. We might see that if we're in a partnership. Like the more intimate the relationship is with anyone, like a husband, a wife, a partner, a friend, the more intimate the relationship gets, it's like the pleasure gets so big, but it has the same equivalence or the same potential to experience pain. And so, pain can be a transformative tool because it can bring one intimacy with self, right? Really fully feeling pain helps you connect with your authentic self. It really allows you to acknowledge your needs, your desires, and your boundaries. So there's like a pleasure that comes as a result of going into the pain, right? There's also like what's called emotional alchemy, right? Pain is energy in motion. And when it's acknowledged, it often transforms into things like wisdom or compassion or gratitude or humility, right? So there really is an emotional alchemy, like a pleasure that comes from feeling one's pain. And also like I don't know if this is too off topic, but there's a book I read not so recently called Existential Kink, and I really recommend it for the listeners because the author talks about how when we experience certain pain, a lot of the pain that we're actually kind of like quote unquote inflicting upon ourselves, we're doing because we really do somewhere deep down want to feel the wide range of emotions, because there is kind of this like hidden pleasure that we experience in pain. Right.
Yeah.
Think about like intimacy, right? Intimacy can be both painful and pleasurable at the same time somehow, right? So it really are two sides of the same coin. And then also another thing is that pain really allows for freedom from suppression. Right? So suppressing pain really requires a lot of energy. We might not think so
Yeah.
because it's just been our like MO for our whole lives. It's just been what we know. But the act of suppressing pain actually requires energy. And
Hmm.
so by leaning into discomfort, you end up freeing up energy to create space to experience joy, creativity, vitality, kind of like the example I gave about me screaming into a pillow this morning, right?
Hmm.
It was like all of the energy was like inside of me. And once I like opened that door, right, I literally saw this like little part of me inside my heart that was like shutting down a door. And she's like, no, 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 don't go behind door number one. It's too big. It's too emotional. You don't know what you're going to find there. But the moment she softened and she gave me permission to like open that door and let all of that confetti come through, it just opened up this space. And then all of a sudden, what happened was this pent up pain was no longer inside of me, but now it was just like taken back to where it came from, into the ether.
Hmm.
So like if you think about an example of not, like another example, imagine like a woman who's grieving a breakup,
Hmm.
and she might allow herself to sob or cry like really deeply. And it's really in the depths of her grief that she begins to feel gratitude for the lessons learned in the relationship. And then it can also open up feelings for hope in love, for future love. Yeah. So I'd say like the pleasure beyond pain has to do with the relief and release that follow emotional processing that often bring a sense of lightness or even euphoria. So it really arises from the knowledge that you face something difficult and you've come out stronger. And another book that I would recommend on the subject is called I think it's called The Wild Edge of Sorrow.
Hmm.
And so it really talks about, again, like this pleasure that comes from grief. It's a book about how to process grief and like all the steps to grieving something. And so that's just another little
Resource.
resource. Yeah.
So, I think too, like my another question I have is how do we just not get stuck there? Like I think sometimes when we open the box, it can feel so big, and if it's not processed correctly or like in a safe way, it can really like the anger and the resentment and the grief and the like it can turn into bitterness that like bleeds into other aspects of our lives, like snapping at people,
Hmm.
or like having a short fuse after we open those boxes. And that can be a little, I think, intimidating because we don't want to be like that, especially when we're on the path of self growth and self healing.
Hmm.
So, what are some ways to avoid that trap of like not transmuting the pain into pleasure, or if it hasn't been transmuted all the way and needs like a little bit of time for processing? What are some tools to help people move through those kinds of situations?
Yeah, totally. So, first I want to say that we'll go into a technique that I use and I'll walk you through step by step because it's really powerful. It's a technique called focusing. But before we even get to the focusing piece, there's what I call a magic moment, right? And so it's that moment between external stimuli and internal reaction, right? It's that moment in between. Something happens outside of you. Someone says something and it triggers a reaction inside of you. And oftentimes our natural way of responding is to either yell, get reactive, explosive, or for some people, it might mean even like dissociating. For some people, it might mean, disconnecting and pretending like everything's okay, even though it's not, right? But if you were to just pause for that magic moment that exists in between the external stimuli and your internal reaction, and you just say, deep breath, now is an opportunity for me to go in. And if you have the time and space, and if not, then even just table it. Just in that magic moment, remind yourself, okay, I'm going to table this. And the moment I have even a couple minutes to like excuse myself to even go to the bathroom or whatever you need to do, right? Then come to this process called focusing. And so focusing is a therapeutic technique. There's actually a book about it. Okay. Third book recommendation in today's episode. It's by Eugene Gendlin. It involves it involves turning your full attention to the physical sensations of an emotion.
Okay.
So it's like in what we've been talking about. Instead of trying to think your way through the emotion, you essentially allow yourself to feel it in your body without resistance or judgment.
Okay, so before we get into this, what are examples of thinking your way out of an emotion? Like, are there key words that you people can catch themselves being like, okay, I'm in the thinking zone and I need to get into the feeling zone?
Yeah, totally. So some examples could be, oh, well, it's really just not a big deal, right? Oh, it's not a big deal. Or or you can kind of like tell yourself, stop making a big deal out of it. Or no, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. Or oh, you'll be okay, you'll be okay. Or we might go into like blaming the other person, right? And like or we might go into like, oh, okay, I need to fix it now. So let me call my therapist or let me go vent to a friend or we might get into like despair. We might get into despair like, oh, there's nothing I can do to fix this or I'm always going to be like this or the situation's never going to change, right? We go into all these
Or
different.
numbing too, like just scrolling, like going through something really intense and then just finding yourself scrolling on Instagram.
Totally. Totally. I'm trying to think of some others like, I think a lot of us just kind of have like coping mechanisms, right?
Hmm.
Like we go shopping, like we don't realize the way we anesthetize
Yeah.
our emotions. So that's kind of like another response to when big feelings come up. But I really think that this like good girl syndrome is a big piece here, right? It's like this little subtle voice, and maybe it came from your mom, which it probably came from her mom and came from her mom, right? And it comes through this like long lineage of women who've been conditioned and taught to act a certain way. And so like in us, we have this little voice. I know I have it in me sometimes, and I have to catch her and I have to be in conversation with her when she's just like I yell it like like I'm trying to think of what she says. She's just basically like don't overreact. You're too sensitive. You're too emotional. It's not a big deal.
Or this is just life. This is just how life
Or
is.
this is just how life is. Or like my way of like operating a lot is like to try to fix it,
Hmm.
right? Try to heal it, like as though it's something that needs to be healed. And so I'll like bring it into process with my therapist,
Yeah.
and which is not a bad thing. Like I invite you to do it. That's another way to like really
Hmm.
be with your emotions. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
But it's like it's the notion that like something even needs to be fixed,
Hmm.
right? Okay, you're feeling big feelings. That needs to be fixed. Like, let's start getting comfortable with feeling our feelings and not running away from them. Like, nobody signed some sort of like cosmic contract before they came into the world that said, you are going to only experience pleasure. And if you don't only experience pleasure, that's a problem, right? Like, that's not what we signed up for in this incarnation,
Yeah.
you
And
know?
also too, just like simple, like we forget too, like you can't know pleasure without knowing pain. You can't know sorrow without joy. Like we can't know these things without the opposite and appreciate them.
Totally. Totally. So yeah, so let me walk you through this process called focusing. And there's really like 5 steps to this process. And step 1 requires you to pause and tune in. So, really, what that means is you're meant to find a quiet space, close your eyes, and take a few deep breaths to center yourself, right? Interoception, like the process of going internal and just being with what is. So, step 1, super easy. Find a quiet place, close your eyes, take a few deep breaths, and center yourself. Like it's like zooming out of the external world and zooming in to your internal landscape. And then step 2 is about noticing the physical sensation. So in this process, we're being asked to identify where in your body the emotion is showing up. So is it a tightness in your chest? Is it a heaviness in your stomach? Do you feel like something's choking you? Is it a buzzing in your hands? So without doing anything about it in step 2, it's all about noticing, just noticing, and spend a couple minutes there, just noticing the physical sensation. And then step 3 is about staying with it. Okay, so what does that mean? It means that rather than trying to analyze or fix the feeling, you simply observe it. Simply be with what is and allow it to exist. Breathe into it. Don't try to change it. Don't judge it. Don't analyze. Just breathe into it and really give it all of your attention to the best of your ability. And then in step 4, we label it gently. So you name the sensation. So, for example, you can say, this sensation feels like a knot in my stomach, or it feels like a burning in my chest, or it feels like a constriction in my throat. Like I said earlier, for me this morning, it felt like I was like something in my chest had me walking through molasses. Like it was thick, it was dark, it was molasses texture. So gently label the sensation. And then in the final step is where you allow it to shift. Okay, so research shows that when you focus on an emotion for 90 seconds or more, that's it, 90 seconds, and you give it your full attention, the emotion begins to transform. So, what that means is like the knot might loosen, or the burning might start to feel cool, or a new sensation may arise and you might be rerouted to something completely different, right? For me this morning, it was like this constriction in my chest started to feel like it like dissolved a little bit and expanded to kind of go from inside me to outside me. And it really, really happened within, I mean, I did a focusing with some screaming into a pillow combined. And it was really within like 30 seconds that the shift began to happen. So if you take like another example, like let's say like a woman is feeling intense frustration, right? And so she might notice some tightness in her throat. But as she focuses on it, the tightness begins to soften. And then she begins to feel sadness instead. And she'll start to realize that her frustration was just masking her grief. And then it'll take her into grief, which then can alchemize into longing or into love, right? And so by just giving yourself this 5-step process, again, you're doing this like alchemical process of turning pain into pleasure or into something else completely, but you're not sitting with the pain and letting it be like the orchestra behind the scenes that runs the show of your life.
Sounds so easy.
No, but it really
Just in
is.
5 steps.
It's really simple. And that's what I
Yeah.
love about this book, Focusing, is that he really breaks down step by step. And I just really recommend the book for anyone who wants to like take this practice because you don't need a therapist for it. This is a
Yeah.
really self-led practice, which is why I love it so much.
Yeah, and we love our therapists, but at the end of the day, we're the only ones that can heal ourselves.
Totally. Totally. Yeah. So that's my piece on alchemizing pain into pleasure. I think it's really about reclaiming your ability to feel deeply. It's a radical act of self-love and defiance against generations of conditioning. It allows you to live authentically and free from social expectations. It transforms pain into a superpower. It turns wounds into wisdom. Okay, so I really invite you, listeners, to make space for your emotions daily and to remind your emotions that their anger, the grief, and the joy are all equally valid and all part of the human experience. Joy is not any more welcome than grief, right? It's all part of your keyboard, and you need all the keys on your keyboard. If you don't have one key on your keyboard, then forget it. The keyboard is no longer functional.
Right.
And so by leaning into your pain, you do create space for more abundance, more love, and ultimately like more pleasure.
Can you give us a bracha?
I'd love to. I bless you all to honor the fullness of your emotions as sacred messengers that are guiding you closer to your truth. May your anger ignite your boundaries. May your sadness soften your heart. And may your joy remind you of your infinite light. Hold on, there's more coming. May you find courage to lean into your pain and discover the profound strength and clarity that emerge when you do this sacred work. And as you walk this path of self awareness and full feeling, may you liberate yourself from patterns of your past and create a legacy for yourself and for your future of freedom and authenticity for generations to come. You are held, you are seen, and you are infinitely loved. If you enjoyed this episode, let's keep the conversation going inside the Manifestation Method Portal app, your #1 destination for Kabbalistic manifestation. Inside, you'll unlock the secrets of manifestation through my proven Abra method, rooted in Kabbalah, psychology, and quantum physics, designed to help you manifest real, tangible results from the inside out. Join our global community of manifestors, explore our signature courses, monthly live manifestation workshops with me, Ayelet, and access our transformational hypno activations and attunements to rewire limiting beliefs and align with your soul's purpose. The app is available now on the Apple App Store and Google Play. To sign up, head over to ayeletpolonsky.com. Becoming a co-creator with the Creator is your birthright. Let's manifest the life you desire and deserve together.